Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues, as tonight we learn about a concept labeled true education. We have found that it directly speaks to the current pressing concerns regarding the quality of education offered in our schools, burdensomely high levels of unemployment, work ethic and productivity levels, and others. Its proponents say that by purely focusing on the academic instruction of our children, we have a generation that is educated but does not have the creativity, skills, and tenacity to sustain themselves outside of formal employment. One that is completely dependent and utterly impotent without a job. That by not instructing our youth in the other aspects that make up the whole being of a person, we now have people who know the facts of life but do not have the strength of character to withstand the temptations of alcohol abuse, recreational drugs, and unsafe or underage sex. They point to increasing cases of depression and other mental health disorders as being a symptom of having poorly prepared our young to face the trials and tribulations that life undoubtedly presents to us all. This major flaw in our education system could be why we have a continent of increasingly so-called educated people who seem to lack the wherewithal to uplift their families, let alone their communities, from the persistent scourge of poverty, disease, and violence crippling Africa's development. The glorification of white-collar office jobs has the labor force looking down their noses at the blue-collar jobs necessary to further the industrialization of this country. It has also reduced interest in the agricultural skills needed for Botswana to gain the capability to feed itself and reduce its huge food import bill. In the 2017 revised edition of True Education, What Every Parent Needs to Know by H. Edward Rowe, true education is defined as the process by which a student experiences the development of the following 7 qualities: spiritual and moral maturity, knowledge of truths and facts, the ability to think rationally, practical capabilities and skills, productivity in the accomplishment of goals, commitment to traditional values, and adjustment to the challenges of life. Have we piqued your interest? True education motivator Loago Setswalo tells us more about this possible cure-all.
True education is a concept that it's found generally in many societies, but it's a concept of education that differs widely from our modern day education system. It encompasses the harmonious development of the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the social, the emotional faculties of man. Believes that education is not only limited to the mental, academic part. It covers the physical part, which is training people how to work with their hands, thoroughness, efficiency. It also covers the mental part, which is the modern day academics. It also focuses on the emotional part, which calls how you relate, deal with emotions, challenges in your life. It also deals with the spiritual dimension of man, that there's that element that also needs to be cultivated. The social dimension of man, we're living in a society that is socially devoid of social education. Most of the time we spend on Facebook and social media. And our ability to socialize and interact in a healthy way, it's impairing us. So there's a need for us to be educated that way. It argues that this education begins from the time of conception. It covers the whole period of existence possible to man. There's not a part of your life where you're not learning anything. It doesn't limit the education to the classroom, to grade 1, kind of standard 1 or whatever form it is, up to after you finish your PhD, your education is finished. This philosophy says education is everything that comes into you, through your eyes, through your ears, through what you touch, the rest of your life. So that is in a nutshell. And its objective is to develop a character that is able to withstand any challenge in life and help you to succeed in this present life.
Where would you say true education is currently being practiced as we speak then?
There are different facets of it being practiced in different scenarios. You have the aspect of it being practiced in some homeschooling parent homes, people that make it an objective to reach through their pregnancy. They have a certain goal to reach. That I want to prepare this child to be emotionally healthy, to be physically healthy, to be mentally healthy, to be socially healthy. Through prenatal influences. And then there are those parents that in their homeschooling techniques, they also teach children how to cook, how to sweep, how to mop, physical education. They also deal with the academics that we know. They also deal with emotions. They give them challenges to meet, and they are supposed to cry and wrestle through challenges to learn how to deal and manage their emotions, and also social. They are put in situations where they have to interact with people and kick away the shyness, and so that is an element of homeschooling. And there are preschools that are trying to introduce this concept in an institutional setting. And then you have it in some primary schools, elementary schools, some of them in the United States. In other countries, you also have them in high schools, and also certain colleges of training that encompasses this whole idealistic aspect that has been happening, that we've been talking about.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get, like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits, and 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card, and paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want, and helping save for those big things for your family, and earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue our conversation unpacking the concept of true education with our guest, Loago Setswalo. What differentiates a true education scholar or student from somebody who's gone through the traditional formal education system that we're mostly familiar with now?
The objective of true education is to give you character, ability to meet challenges without bending and dying or surrendering, the resilience to withstand any situation that you may be faced with or any circumstance that you might be encompassing. So a true education student or a graduate or somebody who's going through this true education will be somebody who, like in the situation we have now in Botswana, where people have degrees, some of them have masters, they haven't been able to get any job. A student who has gone through this concept of true education should be able to be sustainable in this kind of environment. They are so well educated to be able to meet any challenge, meaning that even if they don't have a job, where somebody employs them, they still have minds to think about what they can do. They are able to resistantly start businesses, start organizations, be able to accomplish great things because their way of thinking is not one-sided. The other difference is that I've interacted with these true education students, and I'll give you an example with Botswana situation. We currently have two generations. We have the generations of the 50s and the generations of modern generations. What distinguishes the generations of the 50s to modern generations is that most of them did not go through the modern day academic system of education, but their work ethic is far more superior to the modern day generation work ethic. Why? It's because of the education they received. When they grew up, they had to go to the fields, to the farms to work hard. That's physical education. They had to go and solve problems on their own. And that would teach them social and emotional education. There were certain accepted norms of behavior that were engineered into their minds as they were growing up. Resilience, perseverance, endurance, principles of respect, obedience, controlling your emotions, your passions, your appetites. all that was regulated in our culture in Botswana. And when that person now gets into a modern day situation, they easily survive. They may not have education, but they thrive. If they start businesses, they have what it takes to make it. But you take a modern day student who's graduated from famous universities, University of Botswana, UCT, whatever you may call it. Some of them are at home for 5 years, and they have not been able to do anything with their education. They are looking for a job. If there's no employment, there's nothing they can do. They can't clean the house, they cannot mop, they cannot sweep, they cannot keep marriages because they've not been taught to mend anything. In our generation, whatever breaks, you buy a new thing. So if things are falling apart in the home, they cannot mend it. They don't have the resilience it takes to do that. So a student who has gone through this education is able to be a successful person in whatever capacity they may be called to go through.
How do you think it came to be that we came to find ourselves in this situation where one system was favored at the expense of the other?
Well, it begins long ago with different types of history. Innovation, technology brought a lot of changes in our education system. In Botswana, we had colonization and protection that came, and with it came the ideology that Western education was far more superior, and everything that was connected with us as Botswana was discarded, and it was looked down upon, and they didn't say it, but it was subliminally communicated to average Botswana. That's why we are in a generation where Botswana have children that cannot speak Setswana when they grow up in Botswana. And they don't understand a lot of key things that are key pointers and distinguishing characteristics of our nation as Botswana. So with that modernization and globalization came globalization of education, where no one is viewed as educated until you have a degree, a certificate, a diploma, a PhD. That's when you're educated. But an old granny or somebody who grew up in the villages who is well talented in managing cattle, who can make a crawl, who is able to farm on his own, who is able to fix cars, plumbing work, and all that is viewed as an uneducated person. And that's where the problem is. It began with this modernization. And I think media plays a role in changing our perception. And it affects our self-worth as Botswana. We want to sound more American. We want to speak more American. And with education come culture, because education influences culture. We end up in a situation where we're in a cultural confusion. We have Western weddings, and then we have traditional weddings. And there's this clash of ideologies that you see overriding each other and leading to an identity crisis that I see our nation heading to. And also, we are seeing changes in terms of lifestyle diseases, especially related to being unable to deal with challenges. We have certain lifestyle diseases that affect us in our generation now that didn't affect our grandparents. They didn't have cancer, they didn't have diabetes, they didn't have any of these lifestyle diseases that are partly caused because our physical education, we don't exercise. We wake up in a house, we drive to work, we are in a sedentary lifestyle. That was not part of the Tswana culture initially. And that is the concept that I think is also important when we are analyzing this concept of education. We're people that currently cannot control their emotions. They break up a relationship, there's passion killings, which shows that there's a lack in this education system that we are currently talking about. I'm not saying all of it is bad. It has brought a lot of good. All I'm saying is that we've neglected a greater part that will help us to be successful. And I'm looking at our current generation of young people, because once you neglect one part, it affects the rest. If somebody is lazy at home and is academically very brilliant, that person with time is going to fail to achieve certain goals because of laziness. And that laziness can only be kicked out by physical work. And physical work teaches you to be able to deal with challenges. I mean, if you are cooking, you have to bend your fingers. You know, there are few challenges that you get to meet. If you are a shepherd in a kraal, those things are ingeared into you. Principles of perseverance, you know, ability to withstand situations, resilience, to stomach challenges and not go into depression. All that is something that we can change in our modern day situation. My wife is a psychologist. We see a lot of people that need counseling, and we are shocked that the problems that Americans as well as the Europeans are faced, it's slowly trickling into Botswana. Botswanas now are seeking more psychologists than before, and it's a problem. It's a problem because Botswana have always had problems, but why is it that all of a sudden we are all running to psychologists? It's because we have an education system that is not able to help us deal with things that we cannot change. Help us. We are in an identity crisis. We don't know who we are. Are we white or black? Are we a mixture? Where do we belong culturally? What will satisfy us? You know, these things are things that are causing challenges that are going to be more complex with time.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get. Like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits. And 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card. And paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want. And helping save for those big things for your family. And earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
What then do you think can be practically done to address the situation?
Several things come into mind as you're asking the practicality of it, and that's something that is my passion, to help parents break the chain that is draining a lot of our young people and some of my age mates in a path where many of them will not be able to make it, and that is something very simple. It begins with homeschooling. You can do proper homeschooling, and I know when I mention homeschooling in Botswana, people start raising eyebrows because it's not something common. I was trained in the United States, and homeschooling is something that is very common there, and many people are able to do great things. Homeschooling is something that has always been done before Westernization, before European culture came in. We homeschooled. We didn't know what to call it, but it was homeschooling. Teaching people how to wash dishes is homeschooling. Teaching them how to speak Tswana is homeschooling. Teaching them how to dress, how to iron, how to sweep. That is homeschooling. And we are saying that let that culture be brought back. Teach your children to work. Work is healthy and beneficial for them. Let them meet challenges to be able to meet that. And there's a responsible way of doing homeschooling that is standardized, that can be viewed. And for example, there is Andrews University in the United States that has developed a curriculum for homeschooling parents, and that is Greeks University. It's an affiliate of Andrews University that has developed a curriculum that parents can use. And it doesn't cost much. I mean, you are paying $500 a year for a child. And compare that with the fees we are paying for our English media private schools in Botswana, it's a big thing. It encompasses this whole system of education: the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional dimensions of education. And it's standardized, internationally recognized, also accredited, such that your child can go through the system, graduate. After finishing the high school, they can choose. If they want to be engineers, they've received the foundation to make them persevere. They can take that up and persevere where they're going. Many people are moving in that direction, and it's something that can be done. And for parents that cannot do homeschooling, there are certain preschools that can be started. Certain preschool, for example, there's Good Trades Preschool right here in Gaborone that tries to give this holistic total education approach to younger generation preschool students. We haven't still started the primary school, but that's where eventually we are planning to finally drive the idea. And I think in Botswana, Patrick van Rysberg tried to introduce this concept of a practical education. People that go to vocational training centers in Botswana are looked little upon. They are viewed as those who have failed in school, those who have not succeeded. And I want, if Botswana can, to be able to elevate this practical education and give it its rightful place. One time I went to Germany and Austria. I was teaching some students, and I asked them, so what are you going to do when you finish here? Are you going to university? They said, no, I'm not going to university. I don't have to go there. I said, why? They said, well, I've gone through an education system that if I want to go into practical education, I can go through it and I can survive. And Germany now is leading in industries. You have, BMWs, you have Mercedes-Benz, you have Audi cars coming from Germany. It's one of the leading innovation. How and why? Because of a different approach in the education system that does not only focus on the intellect, but also focuses on helping the hands to work, helping them to deal with challenges that are there. And that's what I would say.
What would you say to somebody who may take affront at your pre-conclusion that the Motswana of yesteryear was better equipped to face life than the new generation of Motswana?
The statistics tell us, as well as the current situation in Botswana. Look at your home if you are in doubt. Look at the current graduate of a university. What are they able to do other than what they were trained for? Nothing, pretty much. They can barely cook. They cannot wash dishes. They cannot clean. They cannot do it thoroughly. You get few there and there who are forced, because a typical middle-class home in Botswana would have a helper at home who will take care of all that. The child grows up in private English mediums and goes through school without knowing anything. So they are not able to learn through those skills how to start a project and finish it, how to be persevering, how to endure something you don't like and still stomach it until the end. So that is a vast difference. You take the Motswana of an old time. If the situation forces them to be a cleaner and work at a hospital and sweep and mop for them to survive, they'll do it. But modern day generations, even if they fail at school, for them to apply to work at a hospital and be a cleaner is something looked down upon because of a different philosophy and approach to life.
What about the generation now that is struggling with not having had a holistic education? Is that it for them? Can they even be trusted to raise the next generation the right way?
Yeah, well, there's always something. It's never too late. Although there's that famous English saying that says all habits die hard. You would have to kill them and start new ones that will help develop the other dimensions of your life. One of the key things that people can start with is work. Work is very important because it gives you all these challenges. And when I'm talking about work, I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about physical, hard labor work. Get some days off and be the one that cleans your own house. Do it. It'll be painful at first because it's a new habit. But you are educating your body, you are educating yourself to be able to stomach challenges. Sometimes wash your car. Simple things that you can begin with that will help you build and grow up into somebody that can be. Take cooking classes, take recipe books, learn how to cook. Do your own things with your own hands. Start a small garden in your backyard and you'll be able to see that is going to bring different changes to your whole life than you ever thought before. So those are a few things that I could suggest a typical Motswana to do even now.